I'm Teisha Bader, in for Mark Golub. And in the news, a kosher soup kitchen in New York City that is making it its duty to make sure that those in need this Passover can celebrate the holiday with dignity. Alexander Rapaport is executive director and co-founder of Masbia, whose Borough Park branch provided Seder meals for those in need this Passover. Masbia has 3 locations in New York and has provided millions of meals to those in need over the past 11 years. They are Brooklyn's first and only kosher soup kitchen. Alexander Rapaport joins us now over the phone to talk about what's happening at Masbia this Passover and what goes on there on a daily basis. Welcome, Alexander. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us about how Masbia is helping people on this Passover holiday.
So what we did in the last couple of years is the last distribution. We do weekly distributions. In addition to the dinner meals, we do a distribution of groceries once a week. So the last couple of years, we used to finish before Passover, and we used to give the last distribution was Passover food, kosher for Passover food. What we did different this year is that as a pilot project, as our first location, we said we're going to try to be open during Passover and serve hot Passover food, which includes, obviously, being open for the Seders. And that's what we did. We put out posters and flyers on social media and the local synagogues that we will be open for Passover. We did ask people to do reservations, so we have an idea of approximately how much to prepare. And we had to kind of convert our entire place, lining the shelves and putting all the silver foil and getting new utensils and all the haggadahs and all the Seder plates. It was a huge project, lots of volunteers, lots of people came through with donations, lots of places came through with the donations of products, such as we got Seder plates from a company called Right Light. We got Herzog Wine donating wine, like different things. People went on our Amazon wish list and sent us all kinds of Passover Judaica, like Seder plates and matzah covers and all kinds of different things. And we were able to make a Seder. Our place usually only holds about 40 people at one time, but we had reservations for about 70 people for the Seder. So we had to use every inch of our entire space. And we got special more tables and chairs and line them all, make them all set up for kosher for Passover, and we were able to serve people with dignity at a soup kitchen the most looked out meal of the year, which is the Seder.
That's incredible. I mean, as you said, this was the first year you were doing this. You had no idea how many people would sign up, if people would be coming, and you had 70 people. So first of all, congratulations on making that happen and, on the initiative and also actually seeing it through and hosting Seders in Borough Park for those people in need. Can you give us an idea of what the Seder was like?
So we had a chazan, a cantor, and we also kind of set up so everybody had a full Seder plate. There were some families who came. I forgot to mention before, we actually had 70 RSVPs, but there were some walk-ins as well. So there were all kinds of people from all walks of life, the entire spectrum of Judaism. There was one Holocaust survivor from Chernovitz who lives in Venezuela, but there is no kosher for Passover food there, so he came to crash for 8 days in New York. Or we had some single mothers with children. We had entire families with children. The makeup of the 70 guests was very interesting, just regular. Our Borough Park site is also open on every Shabbos, which is something special we started a couple of months ago. So our regular Shabbos guests were here. So there was a very interesting mix of people. It was led by a cantor. Usually on the regular Sabbath meals, I am here. I do the Shabbos meals with my family at the soup kitchen, but I promised my kids that for the Seder we'll do it at home. So we hired staff, we hired a cantor, and the cancer kind of led all the so what we call the first days, which is the first 4 meals. The first night, the first day, the second night, the second day was led by a cantor. Lots of singing. They were here till 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was very. It had a little bit of everything. We actually was a little bit done in Yiddish, a little bit done in Hebrew, a little bit done in English, and kind of making everybody feel at home, having enough of everything, making sure everybody can get their 3 round matzahs and get them their, some people eat this and don't eat that, or some people are particular with this, particular with that. We had every minhag, every tradition. We had put up lots of different things so everybody can get what they're used to or would hope to find at a Seder.
That's wonderful. And it's not just on Passover, of course, that Masbia provides hot, nutritious meals for the hungry. You've been doing this for many years. Give us an idea of what happens in your soup kitchens on a regular day. I know you're standing in the soup kitchen right now. Is that correct?
Yes, we have extended hours today because it's Passover. And, some people who go to a soup kitchen sometimes could afford to buy their own, cannot afford to buy their own. Some people, they do panhandling, they get a few nickels and they buy themselves something. But on Passover, everybody is closed in the neighborhoods of Rapaport and Flatbush. There's very little ready prepared food to buy anywhere in the neighborhood. So we understood that we'll need to have extra hours so people can come. And just because we're the only place that actually has ready-to-eat food, there might be more people in need. And, a lot of basic stuff, get yourself a peanut butter sandwich or a cereal. You can't do that, a cheap meal. You cannot do that on Passover because it's not kosher for Passover. So all the Passover meals tend to be heavy and more kind of based on the cooked stuff. So we kind of try to accommodate that. But on a given night, on a regular weekday, we would be open in 3 locations serving dinner. We serve roughly about 500 meals every day. Those are meals that are hot served like in a restaurant. Then we serve a bunch of groceries, which is we make sure that every person who picks up groceries gets the equivalent of 9 meals for every member in the family. So you get a little bit of protein, a little bit of starch, a little bit of vegetables and fruits. And our ratio, the way we make the package is, we make sure that based on what we call the My Plate system that replaced the food pyramid system, that there is a equivalent of 9 meals for every member in the family. Actually, in the packages that we did for Passover, we knew that we're closed for a while. We're not going to do packages this week. So we gave out 18 meals per member of the family, and that included matzah and grape juice and chicken, things that people so badly need to make Passover.
That's so impressive. And you mentioned earlier that the soup kitchen is basically run and set up like a restaurant with waiters, full course meal, a lovely setting. Why was that so important to you when you created Masbia? Why was that setting and the way in which the meal was served so important?
So there's lots of reasons. The main thing is that a lot of mothers with children would never bring their kids to something that gets you that typical soup kitchen feel, or what comes to mind when you say the word soup kitchen. But when they come into our place, I remember once a mother coming in with her children. They were wearing the uniform from one of the local schools, and she came in, fed them, and then took out their homework and was doing their homework in our place. And I was thinking, wow, how bad is it at home that she feels better doing homework here than going home? Now, that is what we try to do, to make it as comfortable as possible for a mother to feel that they could come here with their children and not feel some stigma attached to it. That this is something that looks like a farina smacked down into a plate for someone standing in a bread line. Then you go and it has that lunchroom smell, so to speak. We wanted something very dignified, extremely dignified, and it's also kind of not only what we want, we find that that's what our donors appreciate. The people who support us appreciate. No one wants to be a partner to something that's kind of disheveled. Everybody wants to be a partner to something that looks nice and bright and lovely and happy. And I feel that the people who support us very much want to support when we do things, so to speak, the right way, the mitzvah way, the Jewish way. So kind of that's what we feel very much about, and that's why we put a lot of emphasis on dignity and restaurant feel.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, as far as who came to the Seder, that there was really a diverse group of people from across the spectrum of Jewish life. And you do serve kosher food only in the soup kitchen, but not everyone who comes to eat at the soup kitchen is Jewish necessarily. I know your doors are open to all. Talk a bit about the diverse crowd that you see, and I know also that your staff is very diverse. Does that sort of open a dialogue about tolerance, about understanding, about unity when it comes to acts of human kindness? Do you find that that sort of begins a dialogue, or at least creates an atmosphere?
Definitely, there is a little bit about that. Again, we have one mission only, which is to feed people, but we try to do that in the right way. So there is a lot of byproduct, like you mentioned. There's dialogue that happens. There is openness that happens when you do it, and you do it in the right, dignified, multicultural way. We have volunteers from all over. We have clients or customers, the way we like to say it, from all over. Is something that really makes the whole everything comes together so nicely because of that. That we try to, we're, so to speak, colorblind or religion blind when it comes to feeding people, and we just do it to serve everybody. Yes, we are kosher. The food is top quality kosher, but there is, and obviously we're located in neighborhoods where there's a need for kosher, but people come from far when there is a good program run. When there's a good program, everybody wants that half hour to feel like gives them back their dignity. If we have time, I have a quick story that happened 2 years ago on Passover.
Sure.
One of our staff was in Arizona on Passover, and they met the cab driver that took him back to the airport, told him, "Oh, you're from Brooklyn? Oh, I used to live in Brooklyn. Oh, I used to do crack. But something turned my life around." So the guy says, "What?" He said, "There's this one place on Coney Island Avenue. I used to go there. They used to treat me with dignity and no questions asked. It didn't bother me. There was no conditions. They just gave me my dignity every day. They served me my meal." After a while, I came back to myself. Now I have a family. I live here. I do car service. I live here in Arizona. I got my life back together. He had no clue that this guy is actually staff at that location on Coney Island Avenue at Masbia.
That's amazing.
And so what we see here is that there's a lot of byproduct of people who come to our place, treated with dignity, don't have to be Jewish, but it turns their life around. It goes farther than just the meal of that day. And yes, we're very focused on doing it right, but there is a lot, like you say, there's a lot of additional things that ends up being as part of what we do.
How did Masbia start, Alexander? What was the impetus in your own life that led you to co-founding this place that is so special?
So I have a friend. His name is Mordechai Mandelbaum, and together we were thinking there's no real place for anybody. This Borough Park is this big Jewish neighborhood, lots of, and if we come to think of it, and all the connecting Jewish neighborhoods around it, it's probably one of the biggest in the world, kind of contiguous Jewish neighborhood. And there's nowhere to just go and crash and have a meal, we all like to sometimes invite a poor person to our home or whatever, but there isn't a place for just a reliable place to go. And as we came to think of it, he used to do it a lot in his home. I remember my parents and especially my grandparents used to do it a lot. bring people home to their home and give them tea. And then we just thought, we'll just jump into this and let's hope the community will rally to support it. So we kind of very grassroots style, and I opened a bank account. Actually, it wasn't even called Masbia, the bank account. It was called Soup Kitchen. It was called Beta Tafshel Soup Kitchen, generic. We just started very grassroots, kind of let's see if we can feed people. The first day we prepared 25 meals, 8 people showed up. So we felt, the naysayers have it. Only 8 people showed up. But just in a couple of weeks, we were doing 60, 80, and then 100. And very fast it became a very, very much needed service that people were relying on. And again, there are people who, I met someone who works for the city now. He says, for 2 weeks in my life, I was very down, and I came every day to eat at Masbia. And that was years ago. He since then got married, has children. But for 2 weeks, he had to just have that emergency meal. And now you would never think of the person. He's an author, has a very interesting, dynamic book published, very, very talented person. But for 2 weeks, he had to come and eat at Masbia. So there's just that place that we want to be, that emergency room for hunger that we thought that we should be. And what happened is that we then got some donors who kind of wanted to help us replicate it in other neighborhoods. So we started up in Borough Park in Brooklyn, and then we went to Flatbush Midwood in Brooklyn, and then we did one on Queens Boulevard in the borough of Queens. That's now under construction. We're moving it a half a mile into Forest Hills. So yeah, that's how we started in April of 2005, and now we're kind of still trying, expanding our services with the help of a lot of people out there who kind of keep us going.
Amazing. You're also doing some really exciting things with local New York farmers. Tell us about that program.
So we actually try to go and pick up farmers market stuff. So, for example, there's the very celebrated Union Square Farmers Market. We go there a couple of times a year or more often. Then we actually have Farmers Aid from Norwich Farms, who donates to us regularly. That's a really high-end organic farm that a lot of the high-end restaurants in Manhattan get their stuff from, and he donates to us. He gave us for Passover, he gave us, some people use on the Seder plate radishes, all kinds of different colors, radishes, and all kinds of, just basic organic potatoes and organic onions, all the stuff, that you use for basic cooking, turnips and beets. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. We also have a very dynamic farmer from Ohio that helps us with high-end, trendy microgreens, and we actually had some of that at the Seder here. Like I said before, we try to have every tradition. So we had, for those who want this type of karpas or this type of moror, so we had the horseradish, the romaine, the parsley, the celery, the radishes, all kinds of colors of radishes, and so on. So, yes, we kind of got a high-end farmer in Ohio named the Chef's Garden helping us as well. They send us overnight on ice a couple of times a year, a donation of very high-end product.
So you've obviously...
So that's...
Now that's wonderful, and I mean you're growing very quickly. You're providing meals for so many people. What are some of the challenges that you face, and what are some of the rewards that you see as well?
The challenge is always to just keep up with the pace. Meaning to say, finance is always an issue. They say in New York, running a restaurant is a challenge. A restaurant with no cash register is an even bigger challenge. Just kind of keeping up with the fundraising has been a challenge since we opened. We survived. The lights are still up here. The shelves are still stocked with food, but it's a challenge. Every month, paying the rent, getting another delivery of food, and is always still a challenge. So that's definitely a challenge. The rewards are limitless. I mean, we started the Seder by saying everyone in need should come and eat. We say it right before the Manishtana.
Yes.
And just to say that when you're really having your doors open and have people come, anyone in need coming and eat, to have the literal feeling of it is just so fulfilling. I mean, I was here all of last week, the week before Passover, with my kids, lining the shelves, doing it all, kind of transforming the place into kosher for Passover. Very fulfilling. It's also fulfilling to see how many partners, the people who come forward, the different companies, different individuals who want to come, who want to donate, who want to partner with us. The fact that so many people around the world, so many Jews around the world and all over the States want to partner with us and support us is just that coming togetherness is very fulfilling. I once told my kids that I picked up in Union Square farmers market stuff. It was right before Rosh Hashanah. There were so many people there and seeing what we were doing, and we pulled up with our van, which is very visible. It's very marked that it's Masbia. And people came over to me and said, "Oh, I'm Jewish. I send my kids to the Hebrew day school. Oh, I go to this synagogue." And people were just so excited, so proud to be Jewish and so proud to be connected. And I told my kids that I somehow felt almost as strong as the shofar. It was so spiritual for me, just picking up food as if I was listening to the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, because there's something very spiritual when so many people come together, so many people are proud of what's going on. There's something very deep about it.
That's really beautiful. And you talk about the Jewish value of tzedakah on your website. You have a whole section that talks about charity and giving, and talk about how those acts of giving can start a chain, as you describe on your website, of kindness.
Sure. So a mitzvah, we say in Jewish teaching, a mitzvah brings you another mitzvah. One good deed is a reason for you to do another good deed. It has this multiplier effect. So tzedakah is that mitzvah that people can do on an instinct. You can't eat matzah in the middle of the winter. You can't do that mitzvah. Or if it's at night, you cannot do a tefillin. Or all kinds of mitzvahs are kind of limited to have too many conditions. Versus the mitzvah of tzedakah of sharing a little bit with someone else is a mitzvah that you could do at any time. It's a good deed. You want to wake up in the morning, want to have a good day, you just give some charity. You could go to a charity box, or you could go online and give some charity. And that just has that multiplier. So the invention of the charity box was made for exactly that. So maybe you won't find a poor person in front of your home, but you still want to give charity. Just go to a charity box, put in a little bit of money, you already did a mitzvah. Charity is that mitzvah that became, proliferated in Jewish life. It was this mitzvah that became so popular because it's easy and accessible. So people wanted to do it more, and if they wanted to change your mood of the day, you did a little charity. Now we go, kids in day schools, they start the day, they put a little thing in the pushka. All over, people do charity as a feel-good measure and as a starter of a day measure. Or, in the synagogue, there's always a little pushka going around collecting money for the synagogue or for any other cause, because we feel that mitzvah of tzedakah is something that to be proud of and to do it more and to do it constantly. And now with the websites taking tzedakah, it's so much more easier, where you don't even have to collect it in a pushka. In 1 minute, the money is actually at the charity, and they could buy food with it right away.
And of course,
So
you have
it's kind of-
your staff who gives of their time freely, which is another form of giving. Of course, I know you have a very passionate
Sure.
staff that comes to work from very diverse backgrounds, from diverse economic and social backgrounds and different ethnic groups, and they come there and they give of their time. And I know how passionate and caring they are in doing what they do day in and day out at Masbia.
Definitely. We use about 1,000 hours of free labor every week. I mean, people come and volunteer. They give their time. And some people do that and give donations. Some people do that instead of giving donations. Some people don't have what to give, but they still want to give something, so they just come and volunteer. And the more steadily people do it, the more effective of a volunteer they become. We have volunteers who are already doing their thing for a very long time, and they know what they're doing. We could say we couldn't have done it without them. That's how much an integral part of our soup kitchen, of our staff, the volunteers have become. So yes, we have a very skeleton, small staff. That was one of our challenges, to find enough volunteers and staff that will be here late at night for the Seder. And yes, and all the rabbinical staff, the kosher certification staff and so on, these are people who would rather want to be home. So obviously there has to be an extra pay for doing it during a holiday. So that makes all our operations during these 8 days somewhat more expensive. Kind of operating during weekdays is very easy. That what's also interesting is very few soup kitchens are open during dinner time because, yes, it's very hard throughout the year to get staff during dinner time. The easiest time to find staff is from 9 to 5. But what if you serve dinner and you only start at 3 and you finish at 10? So we kind of always have a challenge with staff and volunteers, and now whenever we're open on a holiday or on the Shabbat, that creates an additional challenge. And yes, we still find people braving that, people coming in and volunteering. We have people reaching out to us, wanting to come to volunteer for the Seder, for the other days, and that's how we do it.
Well, Alexander, you do it at Masbia with such grace and such heart, and we really appreciate that and thank you for that. And thank you for joining us on JBS and sharing of your time and giving us an idea about what Masbia is doing for Passover and every other day of the year. And thank you also to your staff for everything that they do. And I will wish you Chag Sameach and hope to speak with you again soon.
Chag Sameach. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Alexander Rapaport is executive director and co-founder of Masbia, Brooklyn's first and only kosher soup kitchen, also with a location in Queens, feeding those in need every day with dignity, and in particular making the Seder something that all those in need in the New York area could partake in on this Passover. Thank you to him, and thank you as always to our director, Sloan Copeland, production coordinator, Serge Goldberg, JBS Associate Director, Dara Golub, and to our editors, John McDevitt and Dennis Golan. I'm Teisha Bader, in for Mark Golub on this edition of In the News.